Philosophical, or the study of knowledge and wisdom in the highest degree, is the question I propose to discuss, specifically whether the inspired word reason is supreme ruler over the passions, and to the philosophy, or the love and the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, I will seriously entreat your earnest attention. For not only is the subject generally necessary as a branch of knowledge, but it includes the praise of the greatest of virtues or uprightness, whereby I mean self control. That is to say, if reason is proved to control the passions opposite to self discipline, like gluttony and lust, it is also clearly shown to be lord over the passions or urges, like malevolence and evil, which is opposite to justice, and is over the passions against masculinity and strength, specifically rage and pain and fear. But some may ask, if reason is master of the passions, why does it not control forgetfulness and ignorance, their focus being centered around mockery? The answer is that reason is not master over defects that's permanently and naturally in the mind itself, but over the urges and moral imperfections that are against justice and manliness and self restraint and judgment. And its action, in their case, is not to destroy the passions, but to enable us to resist them successfully. I could bring before you many examples drawn from various sources where reason has proved itself master over the passions, but the best instance by far that I can give is the noble conduct of those who died for the sake of righteousness, Eleazar and the seven brethren and their mother. These all by their disregard of pains, even into death, prove that reason rises superior to the passions. I might capitalize here in praise of their virtues. They, the men with their mother, dying on this day we celebrate for the love of moral beauty and goodness, but rather would I congratulate them on their honors they have accomplished. The admiration felt for their courage and endurance, not just by the world and whole, but by their very executioners, made them authors of the downfall of the enslavement and oppression under which our nation lay. They defeating the evil ruler by their endurance, so that through them was their country purified. But I shall presently take the opportunity to discuss this after we have begun with the general theory, as I am in the habit of doing, and I will then proceed to their story, giving glory to the all wise God. Our question then is whether the reason is supreme master over the passions. But we must define just what the reason is and what passions is, and how many forms of passion there are, and whether the reason is supreme over all of them. Reason I take to be the mind preferring, with clear consideration, the life of wisdom. Wisdom I take to be the knowledge of things, both divine and human, and of their causes. This I take to be the culture obtained under the law, through which we learn with due respect the things of Elohim, and for our worldly profit the things of man. Now, wisdom is shown under the forms of judgment and justice, and courage and self restraint. But judgment or self control is the one that dominates them all, for through it, in truth, reason declares its authority over the passions. But of the passions, there are two sources understood, specifically pleasure and pain, and either belongs most of all to the soul as well as to the body. And with respect both to pleasure and pain, there are many cases where the passions have certain cycles. Therefore, while desire goes before pleasure, satisfaction follows after. And while fear goes before pain, after pain comes sorrow. Anger, again, if a man will retrace the path of his feelings, is a passion in which are blended both pleasure and pain. Under pleasure also comes that moral decline, which shows the widest varieties of the passions. It reveals itself in the soul as showing off, and greedy, and vainglory, and argumentative, and backbiting, and in the body as eating of strange meat, and gluttony, and excessively eating in secret. Now, pleasure and pain, being as it were two trees, growing from body and soul, many branches of these passions sprout up, and each man's reasoning is the master gardener, weeding and pruning and binding up and turning on the water and directing it here and there, bringing the denseness or the thickness of this garden of his moods and passions under control. For while reason is the guide of the virtues, it is master of the passions. Observe now, in the first place, that reason becomes supreme over the passions and uprightness from the restraining action of self discipline. Temperance, I take it, is the restraint or the reframing of the desires. But of the desires, some are mental and some physical, and both kinds are clearly controlled by reason. When we are tempted towards forbidden meats, how do we come to give up the pleasures to be taken from them? Is it not that reason has power to suppress the appetites? In my opinion, it is so. Accordingly, we feel a desire to eat water animals and birds and beasts and meats of every description forbidden to us under the law of the Levitical priesthood. We abstain through mastery of reason. For the natural tendencies of our appetites are checked and controlled by the disciplined mind, and all the movements of the body obey the bridle of reason. A bridle, something that goes over a horse's mouth to control it. Again, all the movements of the body obey the bridle of reason. And what is there to be surprised at if the natural desire of the soul to enjoy the achievement of beauty is quenched? This certainly is why we praise the virtuous Joseph, because by his reason, with the mental effort, he checked the carnal or fleshly impulse. For he, a young man at the age when physical desire is strong, by his reason quenched the impulse of his passions. And reason is proved to conquer the impulse, not only of sexual desire, but of all sorts of coveting or strong desires. For the law says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor anything that is thy neighbor's, and that strongly want or urge or desire to have. Verily, when the law orders us not to covet, it should, I think, confirm strongly the argument that reason is capable of controlling greedy desires, even as it does the passions that work against justice. How else can a man naturally, excessively in eating and greedy and drunken, be taught to change his nature if reason be not evidently the master of the passions? Certainly, as soon as a man orders his life according to the law of Yahuwah, if he is stingy, he acts opposite to his nature and lends money to the needy without interest, and at the 7-year period cancels the debt. And if he is parsimonious or tight-fisted with his belongings, he is overruled by the law through the action of reason, and stop himself from holding back his leftover plants after harvest for the needy, or picking the last grapes from his vineyards. And with regard to all the rest, we can recognize that reason is in the position of master over the passions or affections. For the law of the Torah ranks above affection for parents, so that a man may not for their sake, surrender his virtue or uprightness. And it overrides love for a wife, so that if she transgress, a man should rebuke or correct her. And it governs love for children, so that they are naughty, a man should punish them. And it controls the claims of friendship, so that a man should reprove or correct his friends if they do evil. Again, for the law of the Torah ranks above affection for parents, so that a man may not for their sake surrender his virtue or uprightness. And it overrides love for a wife, so that if she transgress, a man should correct or rebuke her. And it governs love for children, so that if they are naughty, a man should punish them. And it controls the claims of friendship, so that a man should reprove or correct his friends if they do evil. And do not think it a paradoxical or impossible thing when reason through the law is able to overcome even hatred, so that a man holds back from cutting down the enemy's orchards and protect the property of the enemy from the spoilers and gather up their goods that have been scattered. And the rule of reason is likewise proved to extend through the more aggressive passions or vices, ambitions, vanity, flamboyancy, pride, and backbiting. For the temperate or disciplined mind drive away all these corrupt passions, even as it does anger. for it conquers even this. Yea, Moses, when he was angered against Dathan and Abiram, did not give free course or free path to his wrath, but governed his anger by reason. For the temperate man, the disciplined man, is able, as I said, to win the victory over the passions, modifying some while crushing others absolutely. Why else did our wise father Jacob blame the house of Simeon and Levi for their unreasonable slaughter of the tribes of the Shechemites, saying, "Accursed be their anger"? For a reason had not possessed the power to restrain their anger, he would not have spoken thus. For in the day when Elohim created man, he implanted in him his passions and tendencies, and also at the very same time set the mind on the throne in the middle of the senses to be his guide, sacred guide in all things. And to the mind he gave the law, by which if a man order himself, he shall reign over a kingdom that is disciplined, and just, and virtuous, and brave, in the mind as well as in the earth. Well then, someone may ask, if reason is master of the passions, why is it not master of forgetfulness and ignorance? But the argument is supremely ridiculous. For reason is not shown to be master over passions or defects in itself, but over those of the body. Which means reason is not the creator of passions and defects in you. The Lord made us just the way that we are. But it is master over the body. For example, none of you is able to destroy our natural desire, but reason can enable him to escape being made a slave by desire. None of you is able to destroy anger from the soul, but it is possible for reason to come to his aid against anger. None of you can destroy an evil nature or tendency, but reason can be his powerful ally against being swayed by evil. Reason is not the destroyer of the passions, but their opponent, which is the things that's against them. Eleazar, the high priest, for example, refused the order of the king to eat unclean meats in order to uphold the law of Elohim concerning animals, both clean and unclean, knowing that if he did, he would dishonor his forefathers who had also endured evil at king's hands, and would dishonor the law of Elohim, proving himself to be more afraid of the cruel oppressor than having the fear of Yahuwah, which oversees all things and justifies all righteousness in life and death. Therefore he perished at the hand of the wicked one, both unafraid and a master of self-discipline. Beyond question, then, the inspired reason is master over the passions. For if his passions or sufferings had prevailed or won over his reason, we could have accredited them with this evidence of their superior power, but not. But his reason having conquered his passions, we properly attribute or contributed to the power of commanding them. And it is right that we should admit that the mastery lies within reason, in cases at least where it conquers pain that come from outside ourselves, for it were ridiculous to deny it. And my proof covers not only the superiority of reason over pains, but its superiority to pleasure also, neither does it surrender to them. Assuredly then, if an old man despise the torments unto death for righteousness' sake, it must be admitted that the inspired reason is able to guide the passions. But some perhaps may answer that not all men are masters of the passions, because not all men have their reasons enlightened. But as many as with their whole heart make righteousness their first thought, these alone are able to master the weakness of the flesh. Again, but as many as with their whole heart make righteousness their first thought, these alone are able to master the weakness of the flesh, believing that unto Elohim they die not, as our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, died not, but that they live unto Elohim. Therefore, there is nothing contradictory in certain people appearing to be slaves to passions in consequence of the weakness of their reason. For who is there that being a philosopher, following righteously the whole rule of philosophy, and having put his trust in Elohim, and knowing that it is a blessed thing to endure all hardness for the sake of righteousness, will not conquer his passions for the sake of righteousness. Again, for who is it there that being a philosopher, right? A lover and a studier of knowledge and wisdom, following righteously the whole rule of philosophy, and having put his trust in Elohim, and knowing that it is a blessed thing to endure all hardness for the sake of uprightness, will not conquer his passions for the sake of righteousness. For the wise and self-controlled man alone is the brave ruler of the passions. Yea, by this means, even the 7 young boys, being philosophers by virtue of the reason which is according to righteousness, have triumphed over yet more grievous tortures when they went before this same king along with their mother. And indeed, it was fitting to inscribe these words over their resting place or their headstone, speaking for a memorial to the future generations of our people, saying, Here lie an aged priest and a woman full of years, and her 7 sons, through the violence of a tyrant or evil oppressor, desiring to destroy the Hebrew nation. They vindicated the rights of our people, looking into Elohim and enduring the torments, even into death. For truly it was a holy war which was fought by them. For on that day, proving them through endurance, set before them the prize of victory and incorruption and everlasting life. The king was their enemy, and the world and the life of a man were the watchers. And righteousness won the victory and gave the crown to her sons. But wonders, but who- I mean, I'm sorry, who but wondered at the sons of the true law? Who were not amazed at them? The oppressor himself and his council admired their endurance, and now they do both stand beside the throne of Elohim and live the blessed age. For Moses says, All also who have sanctified themselves are under thy hands. And these men, therefore, having sanctified themselves for Elohim's sake, not only have received this honor, but also the honor that through them the enemy had no more power over the people. And the cruel oppressor suffered punishment, and our country was purified. They became a ransom for our nation's sins. And through the blood of the righteous men, by satisfying Elohim against the wrath of sin with their death, the divine care of Elohim delivered Israel that before evilly entreated. For when the tyrant Antiochus saw the braveness of their virtue and their endurance under torture, he publicly upheld their endurance to his soldiers as an example. And he thus inspired his men with a sense of honor and heroism on the field of battle and the works of war, so that he plundered and overthrew all his enemies. So he made his soldiers consider their bravery when they faced death because of what they stood for. O Israelites, children born of the seed of Abraham, obey this law and be righteous in all ways, recognizing that inspired reason is Lord over the passions and over pains, not only from within, but from without ourselves, by which means those men, delivering up their bodies to the torture for righteousness' sake, not only won the admiration of mankind, but were deemed worthy of a divine inheritance. And through them the nation obtained peace, and restoring the observance of the law in our country, had captured the city from the enemy. And vengeance pursued the evil oppressor Antiochus upon earth, and in death he suffers punishment. For when he failed utterly to force the people of Jerusalem to live like Gentiles and abandon the customs of our fathers, he left Jerusalem and marched away against the Persians. Think of Abel, who was slain by Cain, and of Isaac, who was offered as a burnt offering, and of Joseph in prison, and a song sang by Ananias, Azarias, and Mishael in the fire. Remember Daniel in the lion's den, and the saying of Isaiah, Yea, even though thou pass through the fire, the flame shall not hurt thee. The words of David the psalmist, many are the afflictions of the just. And the proverb of Solomon, he is a tree of life to all them that do his will. Also the words of Ezekiel, shall these dry bones live? Forget not the song that Moses taught, which teaches, I will slay, and I will make you alive. I will slay, and I will make alive. This is your life and the blessings of your days. So again I say, For in the day when Elohim created man, he implanted in him his passions and tendencies, and also at the very same time set the mind on the throne in the middle of the senses to be his sacred guide in all things. And to the man he gave the law, by which if a man order himself, he shall reign over a kingdom that is disciplined and just and virtuous and brave. Reason is the guide of the virtues, and it is master of the passions, urges, and desires. The wise and self-controlled man alone is the brave ruler of the passions that fight against him. Endure all things through reason. Eternity is forever. Trouble is only a day.